What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 302. Before we dive into any further things, Phil, I think it's important to congratulate the newest member of the married club, which would be producer Pat. He did get married on Saturday. Smaller ceremony, smaller reception. We both were honored to be a part of it, but congratulations, producer Pat. All the BSC boys are now ringed up. Phil, how's it feel to be the one of the veteran statesmen of the married club?
Just the way you describe that, I feel like I need a cigar and to go back to my suit from the wedding with the hat, and that feels like the veteran statesman. It's fun, and congrats to our good buddy John, who's been on the show, for realizing that Patrick also got married. We had him in quite the little ruse. He thought I was getting married last weekend. I was not, and I got married a month ago, and our good buddy Pat was, who's also good friends with John, and John had no idea until after the wedding. It was a good time, and Pat was in on the whole thing as well, so we had some fun there, but it was a nice ceremony. Everything worked out. It was similar-ish to mine with the weather, and I don't know. I always remembered August being super hot and not rainy, and Pat and I both had rainy weddings to start that kind of mellowed out and opened up for the reception. So they both worked out in the end. Really don't remember August being this rainy, though, at least when we needed not to be. But it was a really nice ceremony. Everything went really well. Food was amazing, and congratulations to behind-the-scenes producer Pat.
Yeah, congrats to producer Pat and Bina. Huge, it's very impressive that within the span of close to 3.5 years, all three of us have now been married. Pretty impressive. All been engaged and married in the time that this podcast's been around. So once again, congratulations, producer Pat and his wife Bina, for getting married on Saturday, and thank you for letting us be a part of that special day for you. Can't wait to get you back to the grind of the BSC that we have going on here. So if you want to give Pat and Bina congratulations, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where you can find our merch. You can just select the shop tab at the top of the website, or if you want to take the extra step further and go to any of the Facebook, Instagram, X, and all those other things, you can just click on the link tree. That will take you right to our website as well. You can represent the BSC on the go. And final tidbit here, look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Before we dive into Bills and NLL free agency and the dispersal draft that we got going on, Phil mentioned a little thing that we are going to not sponsor, but kind of talk about on this show here. Burke and I are going to be doing the Out of the Darkness Community Walk on Saturday, September 21st at Canalside as part of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Now, I think I at least believe I've mentioned this on the show a while back, but I had a family member back in 2020 who lost his battle with mental health. His daughter, my cousin, started up a business to help raise mental health awareness called the Peaceful Mind Project. It's actually the shirt I'm wearing now. I've talked about that a while back, and I think I actually wore the same shirt last week as well. But Good Morning America also picked up the story after one of her TikToks about her father went viral, and it was actually posted last weekend, and we posted on our Facebook account last weekend as well. So our podcast has said many, many times now, we said it countless times on the 3rd anniversary show, that as we grow, we want to find ways to give back to the community or just find ways to use our growing platform for good. Now, Phil mentioned that this walk might be a good way to do one of our first things, which is giving back to the community or raising awareness as we're able to. So we will be posting a link for the team that accepts donations. Now, we're not asking for donations whatsoever, but if you do choose to donate, that would be absolutely amazing. It would be awesome. But please make sure that you and your loved ones are set first. For many, many years, mental health has been ignored or just, not taken as seriously as it probably should have. In recent years, we have seen a growth of the awareness that has shined a light on this disease, but there's still a long way to go. Many people are still affected by mental health in one way or another. We're hoping that as we grow this small platform, we can help raise awareness where it needs to be. And for this subject, it is this disease that has been ignored for far too long. So if you or someone you know is in crisis, dial 988 to reach the 988 lifeline, or contact the crisis text line by texting TALK to 741-741. You are not alone. And there's always someone out there that is willing to listen or provide the help to you.
PK, I'm going to leave it at that. You do an incredible job, as always, with these pretty serious topics. I feel like you're the one who normally leads the charge on the handful of times that we've had some pretty serious things to discuss, whether it's in the sports world or outside of the sports world. You've done a very nice job, so I'm just going to leave everybody with what you did.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put out the link to that. Again, if you feel like you want to donate, feel free, but make sure that you and your loved ones are taken care of first. We don't want to take money out of your pocket that is definitely needed, even though this does go to a good cause. I'm not pocketing any of this money. It all goes to a good cause. But, yeah, thank you for listening to that. And hopefully, as we continue to grow, we find bigger and bigger things that we can help with as we grow this silly little idea that started 3.5 years ago. But never a good transition. This is the part that I absolutely stink at, but there's never a good transition to get on a serious topic here. Phil, I know you're currently drafting a team over there. You're not on the clock yet, but when you're on the clock, punch in and we'll try to help you out here. But the Bills start on Sunday. They are taking
We're on the clock,
Arizona
by the way.
Cardinals up right now. So it's a 1 o'clock game. Everybody knows my feelings on 1 o'clock games, but we thought instead of previewing the game, because there's tons of podcasts out there that do it nonstop, we would give our yearly 3 bold predictions for the 2024 Bills season. Last year, I looked up mine. I kind of forgot to look up yours, Phil. I'm sorry, but I'm going to put myself on blast because I stunk. I had Kyer Elam would be the Bills' CB2 by year's end. That didn't work. Dorian Williams would be the Bills' middle linebacker by week's end. Now, he's not their middle linebacker, but he is the outside linebacker starting this season. So I was a year off. And then Diggs will break the single-season reception and yards record. He did zilch once Brady took over. So I stunk. Phil, I don't know if you want to start off with your first one or you want me to start off with mine, but I'm hoping for better results this year for this kind of thing.
I did take my first pick, so I got these picks, it's only 1 minute, and people are flying through, so not ideal.
Who'd you get?
I did get Bijan.
Perfect.
It went pretty chalk to start for the first 3, so Bijan was who I wanted next. But I'll start it off. My first one, all 3 of these are pretty bold. I don't know if any of them are going to happen, but they're both for a reason. The first one, which you kind of touch on in one of yours a little bit, is that Von Miller gets to 8 sacks. And from 2014 to 2019, Von had at least 8 sacks every season. Then he had a couple down years, but he's only 1 year removed from getting 8 sacks with the Bills in 22. Obviously, we know last year he was injured, and when he came back, he looked awful. We put him on blast, I don't know how many times on this podcast at the end of the season last year. He just looked terrible. Didn't really look like he should have came back. Looked like he probably should have been shut down for the whole year. And everything we've heard out of camp is that he does look explosive again. Maybe not obviously back to his early days, but he looks much better than he did at the end of the season last year. So I'm hoping with a full off season and with the 10.5 sacks from Floyd that have been vacated, that he can kind of eat into some of that. I think the Bills do have a good defensive line, and I think after last year, especially with Miller's injury history now, I don't know if he's going to be double teamed anymore. I don't know if he's going to be the one that teams really look to focus in on. And I'm hoping that gives him the opportunity to kind of shine a little bit more while the focus isn't on him and maybe get back to that 8 sack season that he was averaging for so long.
I will take that and I will twist it and make mine. I don't even know if mine's bolder than you saying Von Miller's going to get to 8 because I think you said it perfectly. He stunk. He absolutely
was real
stunk
bad
last year, and we're only saying that because of the statements he made himself that he was healthy, he could have performed well, and came back the year prior. So if you're going to put those statements out there, the negativity is going to be brought back to you. So I went a little differently. And I don't even know if this is super different. I have AJ Epinesa will lead the team in sacks. I said this on Talking Buffalo. I am doubling down on this, saying it on this show now. Last year, like you mentioned, Floyd led the team with 10.5, Oliver 9.5, but AJ Epinesa was third with 6.5. The last 2 years he had 6.5. Rousseau should be getting a lot of the doubles. Miller, I already said, who knows what we're going to get out of him. Smoot, Tuhill, and Solomon, they're all going to be rotational guys. I think the main guys are going to be AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau, and I think with Rousseau getting all the attention and Ed Oliver trying to be the all-pro that he has been in the regular season in years past, I think that's going to leave a lot of openings for AJ Epinesa, who just got paid. I think he's a bit of not an underrated player, but an undercovered, maybe, a shadow kind of player. I think AJ Epinesa is going to lead the team in sacks. That's my number one bold prediction.
We are almost on the clock and then almost on the clock again. We got to do your wide receiver one. So it's a 12-team league, so things disappear quick. And the mocks, I realized that pretty quickly. So we do have the RB1 right now. In my research, I had Kupp and Collins as my options here. Debo's also available right now. Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp. Drake London is still out there. Who would you pick as your wide receiver one for your team?
Out of those choices, I'm going Cooper Kupp, followed by Drake London, followed by Nico Collins.
I was also thinking Cooper Kupp, so all right, he should be there. All right, we'll click on him, get him locked in, and then after that, we'll talk about real quick. I don't know. Oh, in the third? No, we're in the second. There we go. I don't know. Running backs available after that are pretty much Cook. I think James Cook will be there. I think he's a good running back to snag if he's still available. ETN might be available, so if he's available, probably just go that way. And we'll see. We'll see. Oh, shoot. I think Cooper Kupp. Oh, Cooper Kupp's gone. So that's unfortunate. So we got Nico Collins, Drake London. Those are the two. But you got Achan, so you don't want Drake London. That's too much. So probably just Nico.
You got Achan?
Sorry, not Achan. Oh, my Bijan.
Oh, Bijan.
My goodness.
Yeah, I would go Nico there then. That way you
Olave's
don't
there,
double up
but
on
I feel like
wide
Nico's got just a better setup
receiver.
than Olave.
I think Nico is a great selection. But while you manage your second and third round turn here, I will go over my second one. I'll go Dalton Kincaid. I also said this one on Talking Buffalo, but I'm doubling down. Dalton Kincaid will be top 4 in targets, receptions, yards for tight ends in the entire league. Now, last year, the order for yards, Kittle was the only one over 1,000. Then it was Kelsey, Ingram, Hawkinson, Laporta, Njoku, McBride, Ferguson, Kmet, and Kincaid. So, yes, Kincaid's well down there, but Kittle's got Ayuk and Deebo Samuel there now. Kelsey's probably going to take a couple shifts off because his main goal is just, playoffs. Ingram, I think, could be one of the top guys there, but Hawkinson's out for at least the first 4 weeks. Laporta, I think he's going to be up there in the top 4, so you can include him. McBride's got to deal with Harrison. Ferguson, who knows what's going to be happening here if he can repeat. And then Kmet just had Odunze and Keenan Allen added there. So I think there's an opening in the top 4 for the yardage. You got Ingram, Hawkinson, Njoku, Kelsey, Laporta, McBride, Ferguson, and then Kincaid for the targets. So again, I think he's got a way to sneak in there. And then it's pretty much the same thing for the receptions, just you don't have Ferguson in there. So I definitely believe that Kincaid, there's an opening to be in the top 4 of targets, receptions, and yards for the tight ends in this league. And I think if Buffalo's expected to excel this year, he has to be in the top 4.
All right, we're about to pick, and also that one, I don't know. We didn't. Do I just go ETN? Sorry.
Yeah, I would go ETN for your
All
backup.
right.
Yeah.
Solid backup. We're doing great so far. Now we got a little bit of a break, so that's exciting. All right, ETN. Wow, I am amazing. All right. I knew yours ahead of time, your bold predictions, so we didn't cross over, but I still made mine on my own, and we've had 2 so far that have tied into each other very well. So
Right.
This one ties into my next one, so I'm going to kind of comment on it. So my next one, which is about as bold, I think, as it gets, other than the Bills winning the Super Bowl, because I've been very negative the last few weeks, and still am until I see it. But my bold prediction is that the Bills' offense works. And my comparison that I was thinking about for this, and just how I was like, what, who else does this in the league, and how do they make it work, and knowing who's on the team. And the comparison is straight up Kansas City, which is tough, obviously, Super Bowl champions, but McDermott is not Andy Reid by any means. They are very differently minded coaches. Kincaid is not Kelsey, but Kincaid and Kelsey, both number ones, I think, on their team. That's what ties into yours. I do think Kincaid will be pretty much the wide receiver one on this team this year. And then Samuel and Rice. Rice was a rookie last year, still kind of getting his footing. Samuel is the veteran, but similar-ish play style. Shakir, I think, is better than MVS was last year, and MVS is kind of on this team, which is funny. Coleman and Justin Watson, those outside threats, I think Coleman will take a little while to come along, but again, similar comparison. And then Allen, I do think, is equal to Mahomes. I just think Mahomes is fantastic. He is, but he's also got Andy Reid to work with him, which is really great. But looking at the Bills' offensive makeup, and then Cook and Pacheco, I do think, are similar in their own rights as well. Just pretty decent, pretty solid RB1s for their team. So I do think this team, if they can kind of emulate, not identical, obviously, again, Andy Reid and his offensive philosophy and what they can do with that offense with absolutely nothing is amazing. I don't think the Bills will be able to replicate what Kansas City can do with very little weapons, but the comparison of having your tight end be your wide receiver one, and then just kind of a group of a supporting cast with a solid running back and a solid QB, it's all there. So the Bills offense, if they can kind of emulate what Kansas City does, can work. And it's worked in the league. And again, I know Kansas City, a lot of Super Bowls, really great coach, really great QB. It's not a direct comparison. They're not going to be as good as Kansas City's offense. But the idea that another team has made it work is there. I mean, I've freaked out the entire offseason that they don't have a wide receiver one on this team. Their supporting cast of wide receivers isn't amazing by any means. But, you look at a team like the Eagles where they have Hurts, Devonta Smith, you're like, that's what I want. Those two alpha wide receivers. The Bills don't even really have one. So how do they make it work? And to me, it's running an offense similar-ish to Kansas City that has made the style and made the personnel work that the Bills do have on their team.
Yeah, I could see it working. I'm just terrified of the wide receivers, but I do see the comparisons.
It's bold for a reason.
Yeah, I definitely see the comparisons between the Bills and Kansas City. The biggest differences you already pointed out between Andy Reid and Sean McDermott and Patrick Mahomes finally winning it, or not finally winning it, but winning it, and Josh Allen still trying to win his first. So I do see it, but I will go with my last one here, and it is a sad one. Bills will be the 4th seed. They're going to win the AFC East once again, but they're going to be a one and done in the playoffs. Everything I'm seeing and everything they're telling me is that this team is a team in transition. They're going to just say, hey, Josh Allen, take this, run with it. We'll get you the help you desperately need next year. We're going to see, is Coleman the guy? Is Shakir able to step up? Is Dalton Kincaid the guy? So we'll be able to tell a lot of stuff this year. I still think with Josh Allen, you're at least a 9 to 10 win team, and I think that's going to be good enough to win the AFC East because I think a lot of teams in this are going to beat each other up. And I'm not afraid of Miami until Miami proves they can beat Buffalo, and I'm not afraid of the Jets because it's Aaron Rodgers and they're going to self-implode, but that defense is very good, and then New England is New England. So last year divisional loss versus Kansas City. The year before that, divisional loss versus Cincinnati. Year before that, 13 seconds. The year before that, AFC title game. The year before that, wild card loss. So I think you're going to get a wild card loss this year. I don't see them really having the firepower to get through the gauntlet that is the AFC this year. So I got them getting the 4th seed, winning the AFC East, but being a one and done in the playoffs.
Honestly, if we're being brutally honest, I am scared about the AFC East this year. I think they are catching up quick. I think all teams have issues, and they all have holes and opportunities, but it's scary. I do need your help real quick. We're almost up. I got McBride with my last pick. Haven't been able to get him yet, and I like him a lot, so he was there. I need a wide receiver. Right now, we are rocking Nico Collins, Bijan, Etienne, and McBride. We are on the clock for 1 minute. We got Rashee Rice, we got Scary Terry, Tank Dell, T. Higgins. I think that's that's what you got. So pretty much T. Higgins, Tank Dell. I think Rice is a bit early now. I do like him a lot, but that's, I don't know, seems early. And then Scary Terry, definitely not. So we'll say Dell, Higgins, or Rice. What are you going?
Out of those, I would probably lean Rice, but the Higgins is tempting because Chase, who knows if he's actually going to play to start the season.
You know what?
But
I wanted Rice for a while. We're going Rice. Let's have some fun.
There we go. Phil gets the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City.
Heck yeah.
Phil, what is your last bold prediction for the 2024 Bills season?
So similar to the offseason that I've been ringing, the Bills do not need Matt Milano. It's bold for a reason, and I don't love it because all offseason I've been saying how excited I am to have Milano back. He's going to be huge. The defense absolutely needs him. Now he's gone, and I'm trying to say that they don't need him. But Terrell Bernard did an incredible job stepping up for Milano last year. He did what most thought could not be done, essentially, and stepped into that position not only to play it, but play it really well. And I think with that time being kind of, thrown into the fire, he's grown a ton, way more than they expected him to in his first year. I'm hoping a player like Dorian Williams can take that step as well, but this season, where he's going to be thrown into a bigger role, one he might not be ready for, but Bernard was the exact same way. I think Bernard did an incredible job leading the defense last year, leading the linebackers. I don't know how he did it, but he was able to do it without Milano. This defense was successful without him until the playoffs when it got, they were even more banged up, and they definitely could have used Milano. But, I mean, yes, you're going to need a big jump from some of the supporting cast of the linebackers, but if they can do what Bernard did toward the end of last season when he was just kind of thrown into it, which is what this linebacker crew is going to be the rest of the season, behind Bernard, it's just going to be, kind of good luck. This is it, and go get it. So I think if they can take a similar leap like he did last year, an unexpected leap, that maybe once again they can figure it out without Milano. They did it at the end of last year with a lot of those kind of defensive wins where the offense, yes, they were winning and Brady was coming in and they were winning games, but they were very close and the offense wasn't exploding by any means. So I think that's what a lot of the season's going to be. It's going to be leaning on your defense, and hopefully your offense can do just enough. So I'm hoping they don't need Milano, but it is bold for a reason. We'll see how they do a full season without him, but I do think that it's possible that they can work it without him.
Yeah, without actually looking at the contract situation for Matt Milano, I'm kind of just talking out my butt here. It's possible if Dorian Williams absolutely takes the Terrell Bernard role, like similar, not role, but what he did last year.
Yep.
It's possible we have seen the last of Matt Milano in a Bills uniform, where if they're absolutely killing it at the linebacker core, I could see them slow rolling him back. And if they are out week 1 of the playoffs, do they rush Matt Milano back if Dorian Williams is doing great? And then you look at next year, hey, you still got Terrell Bernard, you still got Dorian Williams young on those rookie deals. Do you need a Matt Milano back? Do you save some money if it is possible to be a cap casualty there? So I do like the pick. You're going to learn a lot about Dorian Williams moving up. So
next year Milano would be dead cap of $17 million.
What is his cap hit though? Is there
his cap hit is 16.
Okay, so it would just be $1 million loss.
And then the year after that, his cap hit is 16 again, but his dead cap is 11.
Okay, so yeah, it's possible. It's not going to kill them. $1 million isn't going to kill them. So it is technically possible, unlikely, but it is possible. So those are our both 3 bold predictions for the 2024 Buffalo Bills season. I'm kind of hoping my last one doesn't pan out whatsoever, and I'm proven wrong because I think last year I also tossed in that they'll win the Super Bowl, but that epically failed as well. So we'll move on to the Mad Matty Minute. It looks like Phil's on the clock, so I will power through this here every Wednesday if you haven't been listening. Until we get word on Matt Vince. Matt Vince, free agency's open, freeze is over. Come on, man, let me know what you're planning on doing, even though I'm pretty sure you're coming back. I'm going to be offering my services to entice him to come back. And so far, I'm cleaning up after his animals, returning his packages, getting food for him. Waterboy, gardener, charger boy, light guy, insult fan, spammer Sam, clearance Clarence, birthday Brad, spotter Potter, and dry Dave. Now, Phil, everyone has their set of chores around the house, as you have learned, as I have learned, and as Pat has learned. When you get married or even move in with someone, there becomes a division of chores. Some take dishes, some take vacuuming, others take the bathroom cleaning jobs. But what no one ever does is they never take moving things around and cleaning them. So if things are on the table, side tables, shelves, whatever they are, they kind of just stay where they are and you just dust or whatever in front of them. So what I'm going to be doing is I will be the one that moves those things and cleans around them. Mad Vince, I will be your moving Marvin.
I like it because nobody likes doing that.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
And especially the thing is, like, if you have somebody do it for you, not only can you move it, they can dust underneath, and then you put it right back down. It's not like if you're by yourself, you're picking it up, you're moving it out of the way, you're dusting, you're putting it back. If it's something heavy, I mean, if it's something real light, obviously you can just kind of do it. But I like it. I like it. And then there's always those rings and things that when you do finally move it, you're like, oh, I haven't moved this in a really, really long time. So I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
And you once again continue your naming scheme.
I was trying to. I almost did Maury, but I wasn't sure exactly how to spell it. And then when I figured out how to spell it, I was worried that I wouldn't say it right. So I went with Marvin instead. So moving Marvin adds to this list. So hopefully, fingers crossed, by next week we'll hear, and this won't be a thing anymore. And I'll just send this paperwork over to Scott Loeffler and have him sign off on this and all that kind of stuff. But Phil, it looks like you might still be on the clock. And you need any help with us?
I wanted Mostert. He actually went just before, and then I wanted just another running back. But man, I don't know why things dry up so quickly, but they dry up really quickly in this league. So you start 3 wide receivers. I had to get another wide receiver because they were about to just fall off a cliff. So I grabbed Ridley, and now I need my quarterback. I love Jaden Daniels this year. I feel like this is early for him, but I'm probably going to go Jaden Daniels. And
Is Kyler Murray there?
I don't even know how to use any of this. Oh my gosh, I'm almost up again. I don't think so.
Okay, Kyler Murray would be my pick if he's not there. I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. I got him in a lot of places as well.
I think Prescott just went. Yeah, Prescott just went. Love's there, Burrow's there, Daniels is. I don't see. He might be. I don't even know how to organize. I'm on Yahoo. This is the first time I've ever done a Yahoo draft too, and this is nothing against Yahoo. I've just never done it. I don't know how to organize. I mean, you'd think it'd be easy. I'm scared to touch anything. Kyler, yeah, he was 52. He already went.
Okay, yeah, I would go Daniels just based on he's one of the last running quarterbacks out there. That would be my suggestion to snag him because it sounds like there could be a run on quarterback coming up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do Daniels, and then in 2 rounds, grab Goff as my backup to make sure he's good. This is also going, like, ridiculously chalk, which I don't like. Like, there's so little that has fallen. I'm picked 76 right now. There's a 66, a 69, 72, 73, and that's it as far as falling. 2 of those are quarterbacks. Deontay Johnson and Zamir White. Like, everything's just like, yeah, if they're there, they're off the board. Like, what? It's
always fun with drafts going super chalk. But what also is fun is our first sponsor ever.
I'm back.
And our only sponsor on the show, Tap That Tap Room. Phil, take it away.
And quick shout out to them. They've been with us from the beginning. They have stuck with us through the entire off season. So we do greatly appreciate them. I know we kind of run through this every single episode, and I feel like sometimes, even though they have a lot of events and there's something new for us to kind of go over every episode, but I don't think we give them enough credit for being a sponsor of this show for how long they have been. But our sponsor is Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York, Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer a variety of beer, cider, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
So Wednesday tonight, the 4th, 7:30 is the weekly trivia with Geeks Who Drink. Tomorrow, Thursday, the 5th, 7 p.m. is the weekly karaoke. Then Sunday, September 8th is the moment you have all been waiting for. The Bills season kicks off. We already gave them their bold predictions. Phil, I don't know if you know this, but Tap That Tap Room is one of the very few actual locations that plays the sound for the games. Absolutely love it. Player of the game will be announced, so keep an eye on that. An eye out for that. If you haven't heard, if you wear that player's jersey who is the player of the game that they announce, you will get a free gift on entry through the door. Couldn't have asked for anything better. And then at halftime, they will be giving away a Buffalo Bills jersey every single game. Every single game has a sound on. Every single game, there will be a player of the game. Every single game, you need to make sure you're at Tap That Tap Room. So for any other posted event, check out their Facebook page and find out what's on tap and what's on deck. Check out tapthattaproom.com. Expect to see everybody down there on Sunday. Phil, I don't know if you heard, but it's been a roller coaster of emotions for the Panther City Lacrosse Club, who are now non-existent. But, 2 shows ago, Phil, we were saying, okay, let's talk about the dispersal draft and what's going on there and who could possibly be available at 14. And then last show, it was like, man, okay, we got good news. They're likely going to North Carolina. And then I think it was Friday, Adam Levy's like, okay, pump the brakes. There might be some issues here. We'll find out exactly what's going on. And then the late Friday dump, because right before the holiday, NLL is perfect with their timing on this. They announced that the Panther City Lacrosse Club will disperse. They will cease operations, and all the players will go into the draft. And that took place on Monday at 11. Didn't find out any of the news until, free agency even opened. They had to do that nice little graphic that is right behind my head now. It kind of went similar to what we kind of thought, with some pieces moving around and some players actually dropped further than I thought. But Will Malcolm went to Colorado. Donville went to Las Vegas. Nick DeMood, who we'll be talking about shortly, went to Philly. Sheridan fell to Vancouver. Gauthier went to Calgary, who I thought was actually an early pick to me, at least. Hosek fell to the Rush. Caputo went to Ottawa, and we'll be talking about him in a minute. And the guy that I really wanted, Phil, of course, he goes to Rochester, Josh Medeiros. He's got a qualifying offer, but Rochester has a ton of people. Jason Knox, I thought, was one of the steals of the draft, going to Colorado or Halifax. Out of all these players, 27 were selected. The only player that was left undrafted was Michael Impolito. He was the 2023 6th-round pick, 97th overall. He was the only player not picked. There were a few trades. Georgia sent the 10th pick to Calgary for Seth Van Scheppen. He was a player that I was interested in years ago. Albany sent the 13th pick to Ottawa for Will Johnston, a goaltender, so he's going to be backing up Doug Jamieson. And then Buffalo, of course, when you're listening to this is why. Buffalo sent the 14th overall pick to Philly for their 2025 second overall pick. So, Phil, kind of what are your thoughts on the draft as a whole and to see the end of Panther City Lacrosse Club?
Whirlwind,
yes,
for sure.
Yep.
I feel bad for... Sorry, this is ridiculous. So Goff's gone. We'll put it that way. So we need a running back and I think a wide receiver. We got JSN, Brian Thomas Jr.
Yes.
And then Singletary, Chase Brown, and then Ford and Eckler will still be there. So probably Ford if I have to wait. So I'm probably going to go wide receiver here. Do you want JSN or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Thomas. That's my pick.
Thomas it is. Who do we have on this team? We have ETN. Is that a problem?
No.
Okay.
Not this late.
All right. Yeah, just a lot going on for them. I mean, I know it's hit or miss. Like, this is why, and I'm not saying that Levy had any rumors or anything. This is what he was being told. This is what he was reporting, which was much, much better than nothing. At least this gave us some idea of what was going on behind the scenes. Without him, we would have been completely in the dark until all of a sudden, probably at 12, wherever it was, 12:10 on free agency opening day, they would have been like, hey, we had a dispersal draft behind closed doors all of a sudden, and here are your players, and this is how it all went down, because that's how the NLL works. But because you get kind of the inner workings of what's going on, like a deal was in the works for North Carolina, they were close, but so you have that which is what we were going through on the podcast, you have that idea of, that flow where we thought they were going to be a dispersal draft, then all of a sudden, okay, they might have a savior, they might be staying in the league, we might be okay, and then you go to a dispersal draft, and again, it's one thing for us to have to comment on all of that, but it's another for the players, the organization, to have to go through all of that and kind of, I'm sure they're getting the same information that we are, because we've seen it plenty of times where players, like, we accidentally say something that a player doesn't know. So I'm sure they were getting the exact same information. Do you want Chase, Brown, or Ford? Probably Ford.
Yeah, I would go Ford.
Ford it is. Done. So, I mean, it's a lot for the players, and this is kind of going back to what I talked about originally with the team folding. It's really unfortunate, and again, it's really tough on the players. Like, all these people now have to go all over the country or to a different country and try to make that team, make their travel arrangements, uproot their lives if they need to. Like, it's just,
especially
it's
after
a lot.
It was reported by Levy that the players were notified or being notified that they were headed to North Carolina. So
right. Like, it's just so
up and
much.
down was crazy.
Like, I know that we want to get into the draft and talk about that, but just remember that there's a very, very human element to all of this, and these players don't make the money that an NFL player that's traded, he's doing fine. I mean, yes, it's still a lot for them to uproot, move either way. Moving's a big deal, whether it's, for a lot of money or not a lot of money, but they can make it work a little bit easier than a lot of these people that have secondary jobs now might have to go find a new job in their new home city. Like, it's a lot for these players. I can't imagine it. But as far as the draft itself goes, I think everything went really, I want to say well, I guess is the way to put it. I mean, the Bandits weren't able to get a player, which is fine by me. If they didn't like anyone when their time came up, why not get a actual draft pick? It was cool that the NLL allowed trades, because we were not sure about this going into it until a little bit before, if they were able to trade future picks outside of the dispersal draft. So it was nice to see that they were able to, and the Bandits were able to acquire something. I think Elijah Gash was the one that you had mentioned, that a lot of people had mentioned going to the Bandits, but he went to Toronto. So once he was gone, maybe there was just no one really left that the Bandits wanted. I really wanted Poosh, who had taken face-offs. He's very young, only 22, and he was the one I wanted originally, so I was kind of upset they didn't get him. But as far as the other teams go, a lot of teams got really good. I don't know what I would really like. Were there any surprises to you in this?
I think the biggest surprise to me, which I kind of hinted at, was the Jason Knox falling all the way to Halifax.
Yeah.
He was probably, I had him going in like the 5-6 area between Calgary and Saskatchewan, and I understand why Saskatchewan took Matt Hossack. But, we'll be talking about the trade between Ottawa and Philly in just a second, but I thought that Jason Knox going to Philly might have been Ottawa there might have been a better fit to pair him with Jeff Teat and the offense that they got going on there. And Taggart Clark, that's also there now. But I was surprised and shocked that he fell all the way to Halifax. But I guess with the news of Ryan Benesh in a few minutes also, I'm kind of teasing all the free agency market. But a lefty forward to kind of replace Benny there, who is a stud at 24 years old, 1 year left on his rookie deal. I thought that was a steal for Halifax to get him that late at number 9.
Yeah, this is obviously the Bandits were going to tank, and you will take that championship over anything. But it's kind of an unfortunate year to be so good, because
Colorado getting Will Malcolm is just dirty to see him paired with Connor Robinson and Eli McLaughlin. If Ryan Lee's back healthy and Zed Williams, it's just and I guess
that's a better way to put it. Like, it's not that the Bandits, no matter what, probably would have been toward the bottom of this draft where you're not getting a top player, but the teams that didn't have great seasons just got like a first overall draft pick in any other draft,
Vegas
like in an
actual.
actual.
It's ridiculous to add to that offense that they got going there.
So I mean, that part of it is a bummer, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to congratulate these other teams. I don't. I mean, good for them, I guess. Not really. It's frustrating that they are literally gifted just incredibly talented players that they would not otherwise have on their team. I don't know. It's mildly frustrating. Again, I would much rather have a championship over anything, any player in this draft by far. So thank goodness they won it. But these bottom teams, it was a good year to be a bottom team. But
The only
it was
other,
interesting.
Yeah, the only other player I really wanted to point out was Callum Crawford, going all the way down to 25, getting drafted by San Diego. You know, before Panther City folded, they offered him the franchise tag right before the freeze happened as well. So he can refuse that, being over the 33 years old. Or I think it's 33. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure it's 33 and older. You can refuse it. But, you know, San Diego taking a chance at 25 to draft a guy like Callum Crawford. If you can convince him to come to San Diego and say, hey, you know, we signed Ryan Benesh. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, you know, with all the star-studded power that San Diego has had in the few short years they've been even in the league since 2019, I believe it is, drafting Callum Crawford that late and taking the chance on it when, you know, there wasn't much left on the board they could have taken. There's two other players drafted after them, was genius by them, in my opinion. Them taking Callum Crawford, it doesn't hurt them whatsoever to kind of take his rights and hope, hey, maybe he'll sign the franchise tag, or hey, we can kind of talk to him really quick. But I absolutely loved it. I think that was a nice idea by them to kind of take that chance and say, hey, maybe you'll come out to the Seals and play for us.
This is just wild. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 bench spots to fill up, a kicker and defense, and all the defenses are already going in round 10 here.
New Orleans Saints would be my pick because they have a easier opponent week 1, I believe.
Yeah, they're pretty late. So at this point, I think I'm just going to punt. All the good ones. I mean, Pittsburgh's still there. I don't know if would they be the last.
Their offense is just scary for me, though. I know their defense is really good, but their offense isn't going to score enough points to keep them.
Yeah, it's either that or stream all year, which I don't think I've done in a while. So I guess we're streaming all year. Do we go Tua, Gus Edwards?
I would go the Gus bus.
Gus bus, and then hopefully Tua will be there on the swing back. The other options in 20 seconds. Chase Brown's still there, who I do like.
Chase Brown, yes. I like Chase Brown because he could easily take over for Zach Moss.
Yeah, I do like him a lot. And then Shaheed, Addison, Williams, but all right.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the PCLC, Panther City Lacrosse Club draft. I mean, there were a few other talking points here. I originally had, and I wrote this stuff on Monday after it happened, I specifically said, and Phil can make sure that I wrote this right, trade must be coming from Philly with both Nick DeMood and Zach Higgins both there. Higgins has 2 years left. Flash forward, they traded. I also said, thought Ottawa did really well getting Caputo and Patton. Well, you know, all that is combined because as free agency opens, the trades open, and we had a massive trade went down about an hour or two before before we started recording. Philly traded Zach Higgins to Ottawa, who was formerly New York, remember, for Phil Caputo, Liam Patton, and their 2027 first-round pick. I think this makes New York, I should say Ottawa, a legit playoff team. Higgins he's got 2 years left at 34 years old. Nick DeMood is 26 with 1 year left, so it made sense that Philly would take DeMood. They probably even out in the goaltender department there, but they grabbed a second one, were able to load up on a later first-round pick in 2027, a stud, or not even a stud, but a depth scoring forward in Phil Caputo, and then solidify the back end with Liam Patton. I thought they did a really good job drafting Nick DeMood at 3, not letting him get to Vancouver or Calgary, who was right behind him, who that was likely the pick there. So they were able to take him and trade Higgins to a team that desperately needed a goaltender in Ottawa. I think that helps Ottawa, you know, with Jeff Teat. Let me look up how many years he has left. I believe he's got 1 year left on the contract that he signed, and I don't believe he's old enough to reach. Yes, he's got 1 year left. He's 27 years old, and he does not have a YUF. He's going to be an RFA, but you have to start winning and make playoffs with Jeff Teat. Otherwise, he's going to be starting to look, hey, can I win somewhere else? But I absolutely love this deal for both teams. I think it helps both. And some people might say, yes, you spent more than you needed to for Zach Higgins, who's 34 years old. But in a league where there's not a ton of star-studded goaltenders, you got a pretty stinking good one in Zach Higgins. And for everybody that's listened to the show all offseason, I've been preaching Zach Higgins, and it's been the Zach Higgins show all the time if Mad Vince decided to hang it up. Mad Vince, you better come back, because this means Zach Higgins can't come back to Buffalo.
I auto-drafted the Pittsburgh defense.
That works then.
I panicked on a wide receiver and auto-drafted. But anyway, yeah, you've been a huge Higgins fan. I thought, like you said, I don't know, overpay seems a bit here for someone who's a bit older. But how many times have we talked about that they're, I mean, as great of goalies that there are just for the NLL in general, there really aren't a ton that are elite. And from what Higgins was able to do the little bit of time he had as a starter, I think he's been really, really solid. And I think we saw what New York was trying to do last year. Now Ottawa, sorry, I'll get used to that. With their defense, they were trying to get their defense a lot better, right? So I think if you add Higgins to a improving defense, I think that it will be interesting, especially because Ottawa is an organization, like you mentioned about Jeff T, but in general, they want to come out and look really good. They don't want to come out and be a bad team. Like, if you're trying to make a name for yourself in a new city, new NLL franchise, you kind of got to go for it all right away. Like, they need to make playoffs. I mean, you were on them 2 years ago. I was on them last year to make it. They didn't either time. They were very close, but they didn't. And they need to, in a new city, make playoffs and get that atmosphere really bumping. So we'll see what happens. It was a really big trade to see, especially after you mentioned, especially in your notes, that you loved the dispersal draft from Ottawa. Then they shipped up those two players and shipped them off for something that they thought they needed even more. So it was still a great draft for them because they were able to combine those two players in a trade for a great goalie. So we'll see how that kind of all works out in the end. But I do think it is a good move for Ottawa.
Yeah, so that was the big trade that went down. Before we dive into what happened with the Bandits, I think going over there hasn't been a ton of big names moved so far in these 2 days that free agency has been open, but there's been some, of note. You had Andrew Kidd goes back to Albany for 2 years. He's probably going to be the third goaltender up in Albany. He's probably going to spend some time on the practice squad once again. You had, I guess we'll talk about this now, Dalton Solver leaves Buffalo for greener, not even greener pastures, Colorado. He's going to be they really committed to him right from the get-go. A day signing for a player like Dalton Solver proves that they're probably going to use him on the back end, and good for him to find a deal out there. I absolutely loved him in this time here. I didn't think he got enough run on the back end, especially last year with some of the injuries, but more power to him finding a spot out there.
I'm happy for him.
Yeah,
very
happy for him. I think he's going to have a great opportunity out there, and maybe that opens the door for them moving Tim Edwards. I'm not saying it's happening, but maybe it will. Tor Reinhardt went back to Las Vegas. I think that's a great signing, and re-signing to be able to keep him there. You had Adam Levy already was hearing that Chad Tutton. This was a moment of silence for me because 2 off seasons ago he was a free agent, and then he signed with Philly, and then this off season, he's a free agent and he goes to Rochester. That's what's being reported right now. But I will note, Rochester already has 29 players under contract, plus Sulzberger, who they took in the draft, plus Medeiros, who they drafted, who is a qualifying offer plus. So they possibly could have 31 players under contract. If you don't know, it's 21-4. So they could be shipping some guys out. Taylor Jensen, not saying any other names. A former Bandit, Jordan Durston, gets back in the league, signing a deal with San Diego. And then the biggest one here, Phil, right before we started recording, like literally 15 minutes, Ryan Benesh is confirmed. He is signing a 1-year deal in San Diego. He leaves Halifax, so that is one mark for a player that leaves in free agency for another place. Going to San Diego, they just drafted Callum Crawford. They got Dane Doby as a free agent. Are they trying to run it back with even an older forward group than they had last year, where they traded Curtis Dixon, remember, to get a bit younger with Zach Currier? And now they sign Ryan Benesh, who already said last year was probably going to be his last year. He goes to San Diego. He's chasing a championship. Another tattoo on the arm for Ryan Benesh to another city. But, Phil, what did you think of free agency so far, less than 48 hours into it?
That was the big one, for sure. I mean, crazy that he's going literally like not only across country, but a different country. wild move for him. Good for him, I guess. I do not want San Diego to win a championship anytime soon. But interesting that he is leaving one competitor to go to a different competitor. He's still trying to get that elusive title for himself, and we'll see if he can. I obviously hope not. But overall, I mean, I think Tutton's really bad for you. And other than that, there's been nothing too crazy going on so far. A lot of it was really slow to kind of kick off, especially, I don't know, we've talked about, oh my God, back on the clock.
Yeah, I'll pick up there as you draft. I definitely thought there was going to be more movement with the freeze. You know, I definitely thought, and there probably was a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes where you're not supposed to be doing anything, but it seems like there wasn't. And because you still got Keegan Ball out there, you still got Austin Shanks, Rob Hellier, you got Randy Stott still out there, you Dane Dobie, you still got Joey Caputo, Damon Edwards, Jeff Cornwall. There's still a lot of big name players out in free agency, and nothing has really transpired out there yet. And I think we already mentioned the three big names is Ryan Benesch, Chad Tutton, and Tor Reinhardt are off the market so far. At least that's been reported and at least confirmed on some cases here. But there are still a ton of big-time players out there that are waiting for the new homes. And got to remember, the draft is on September 15th. That's less than 2 weeks away. So a lot of these players are looking for homes as new players are going to be joining the league. So I think the rest of the week here and early next week is going to be a massive signing for a lot of these players to either re-sign to where they were or join new homes.
Yeah, and on that point, like, I don't know, I'm surprised more hasn't happened already.
Right, yep.
Especially with a lot of these, like you just mentioned, like the qualifying offers and things like that. Like, I expected a lot of that just kind of pick up where they left off and just rapid fire, like, okay, all these players are supposed to be coming back. They're all coming back. Here's their new deals. It's over. And we just haven't seen as much of that as I expected to kind of go down. I don't know. It's been a slower free agency start than I expected. And again, seeing some of these bigger signings in other areas and some of these trades going down, it just, I don't know. It's tough again. And we talked about it a lot the offseason. The Bandits do not have room for that many people. We'll see what they do with their draft picks. I mean, the draft is now less than 2 weeks away. Is that math even?
Yep, September 15th.
Correct. Thank you.
Yep.
It's 15 minus 3 is less than 14, but for some reason I was like, I don't know, that seems wrong. So we'll see. I mean, a lot could happen in those less than 2 weeks till the draft, and the Bandits have a lot of picks, and maybe they're working a ton of stuff behind the scenes because free agency hasn't really rolled as quickly as I expected it to. Maybe a lot of teams are trying to scramble before the draft to fill out their rosters as much as possible before they need to go into that draft, knowing what areas they're looking for. But to see the Bandits not really doing much was expected, but also kind of depressing because I want them to do something, but at the same time, they don't need to. I mean, we've talked about 100 times, 4 straight finals, you won back-to-back. Do they need to do anything at all? No. They can just roll it all back. Is that fun? No, not for an off season, but at the same time, I do think the draft will be exciting coming up. You did post, I do not know who it was from, and I apologize, but you did post some draft information that we were able to find that's out there on the web, which was great to see because we were just complaining, and it's on, third parties like us to make it work, so it's a bummer, but we were just kind of mentioning that we hadn't seen much about the draft yet, so it was really good to see some information pop up of players that might be available, especially when the Bandits have so many options for the draft this year.
Yeah, we'll give them a shout out on Twitter at OnTheClockLax. That's OnTheClockLax. They were posting some names to look for in the draft coming up, and
greatly appreciate.
A newer one this year. I think they just started. Yeah, just started in August of 2024. New follow there, but they're a great follow. So go check them out. But like we were mentioning, The Bandits haven't done a ton, but we were fully expecting them not to do a ton. We were expecting them to tinker at the back of their roster, and that's kind of what they did. They brought back Phil's boy, Christian Watts, is back on a one-year deal. He was cut last year, and he spent a lot of time on the practice squad. Did get in a game or two. He was a former 82nd overall pick in the 2022 draft. Big boy, 6'4", 192, 24 years old. He's a ready forward. Now this, we've had a couple people reach out. This does not mean Kyle Buchanan is not returning. This does not mean Kyle Buchanan is retiring. We said it in the last show, and we'll say it again here. A lot of these teams are going to be signing players to either get a look at them, see if they can earn a roster spot. Some of these players might get cut, and some of these players might make it to the practice squad. I just mentioned Rochester's got 29 players under contract right now, with Josh Medeiros on a qualifying offer, which make 30, and Sosselberger on a drafted players list, which will make 31. So they're going to bring in players. That does not mean that other players are getting replaced. So just take that with what you will. But they also signed Clay Scanlon, 5'10", 185, going to be 23 years old, lefty forward. So this does not mean Chris Kluche is not coming back. He was third on the Langley Thunder in the WLA with 23 goals, fourth on the team in points with 47 in 17 games. He went 10, 15, and 25 in eight playoff games last year. Well, actually, like a few weeks ago, I should say. He was a 2019, man, Phil, I'm butchering all these numbers. Too many numbers. Second round pick, 30th overall from Halifax. And then they also, earlier today, I think around 3 or 4 o'clock, they re-signed the boy that you absolutely hate, Corey Highfield, back on the Bandits on a one-year deal. Came over from the deal in Rochester for 2 second-round picks. Five games with the team, 1 assist, 14 loose balls, former second-round pick with Rochester, 18th overall. And I liked his play in the limited time that we saw him on the field. He was a great depth signing, and he finished the season on the practice squad, so they had to re-sign him. He was a UFA, and he does decide to come back to Buffalo. But 3 signings on the back end of the roster for the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, I think that one, I don't hate him. I do like what I saw when he was here, but like that one and even Watts, like those are the kind of deals that I was looking at, and I was like, all right, so the Bandits they're really not going to do too much. They're just kind of re-signing some of their players, and we'll see what happens from there. I think that's the big thing to remember with this, though, and all the draft picks, that if they don't make any trades, if they can't find any big trade partners to bring 1 or 2 really impact guys in, maybe a Tim Edwards, or I don't know, Tim Edwards, if he could just join the Bandits, that'd be great. But if they cannot find a way to bring Tim Edwards in and they keep all of their draft picks, all of these players kind of turn into camp bodies, because they will all be fighting for a very small selection of spots, which we talked a lot about. But I think these guys are ones that are going to be in that bubble. Watts was on that bubble last year. You didn't think he was going to make it. He made it, and then he was cut after a few games. Scanlon, I think, is going to be on that same bubble, but I think the big thing with him is that he's a lefty forward, which they could be lacking. And then Highfield, again, I do like what we saw out of him. I think he is good transition. I think he did play well on defense, and he has a little bit of that offense ability. So they could use a transition player like him, but I think depending on what happens in the draft, he's also going to be around that bubble kind of player. So any of these guys that they're signing are going to have to work really, really hard to make the team, but it's possible for anybody. And again, Watts, I think, was the big one last year that you did not think, you had him on the bubble, but you didn't think he was going to be able to make it. But, through his camp and just what he was able to do in preseason, he was able to make a big enough name for himself to make the initial roster. So any of this is possible, and we'll see over the next few weeks how this roster is going to shake out. I think Scanlon could be an interesting one as far as a lefty forward, and the big name free agent right now, I think, for the Bandits, I would assume you agree. I think Buchanan's probably the biggest one, right? That is just, there's no real news on, and he's not, he doesn't have any kind of deal or anything because he's too old to get one of those deals. So I think he's the biggest free agent out there right now for the Bandits to watch before the draft to see if they do anything with.
Yeah, I mean, what you got right now is unified, or I did it again, Phil. The players that are currently out there that can be signed right now are Bryce Sweeting, Emerson Clark, Adam Bomberry, and Kyle Buchanan. So I definitely agree that Kyle Buchanan is the biggest name out there that, is a player that could either hang it up, or if there's just not room or he decides to go elsewhere, the Buffalo Bandits, for whatever reason, decide to not bring him back. He's the biggest name still out there, is Kyle Buchanan. And I would expect, and hopefully I would expect, some news on him within the next week or two on what his decision is, because if he decides to hang it up, is Christian Watts the replacement for him, or is there another guy in the draft that they're going to be looking to do? I think they're probably going to want an answer from a Kyle Buchanan and from a Matt Vince if they haven't already gotten one before the draft with those 3 first-round picks in the early second round. So that would be my assumption, is you're going to get word on Kyle Buchanan and Matt Vince before the draft, so they know what to do either in the draft or use those draft picks to acquire somebody else. So 3 players, 3 players back to the 3 players for the Bandits that they signed. 2 of them returned to the Buffalo Bandits. Scanlon is the new guy out there with the lefty forward, but we've been saying it all offseason. We'll continue to say it. There's not very many spots on this team. I think when you and I did it, we had, 2 spots on the active and maybe 1 or 2 spots on the practice squad. They're going to be fighting for spots on this team regardless of what your name even is. Like Corey Highfield has experience with this team, was a part of the championship team last year on the practice squad. He gets a spot back, but that does not guarantee him a spot on the active or practice squad spot. He's going to be one of those bubble guys along with Watson and I believe Scanlon as well. So there's always going to be shockers out there. I was shocked with Watts last year. I was also shocked with the Alex Q making it, and they were able to send him to Toronto for a 7th-round pick. So there's always guys that are going to be shocking you. There's always guys that are going to, go, how did that guy make the team over this guy? But again, just because a player is getting signed does not mean they're replacing somebody else. It could mean that, but it definitely does not mean that. So for everybody saying, hey, that Christian Watts means that Kyle Buchanan's not coming back, he's hanging up, he's signing somewhere else, that does not technically mean that. They need camp bodies for these scrimmages and just to practice in general.
Yeah, we saw exactly. I know Buchanan was signed last year, but same thing. Watts made it with Buchanan signed, and here we are. So I would assume if Buchanan wants to come back, and their championship window is still wide open as long as Vince agrees to come back, but which PK is really holding out hope for very soon. But if Vince does decide to return, I know we signed, but if he does agree to finish out that contract, then I think they would try to do everything in their power to get Buchanan back. Hellier is still out there as well as a veteran replacement, but while their championship window is open, I know they relied a little bit on defensive rookies last year and leaned on them a bit, but if Buchanan's willing to come back, I don't think this is the time you would see a replacement of him if he's willing to come back. I don't think Watts would just take his spot and they would just kind of move on from Buchanan. I think if Buchanan wants to come back, he absolutely has a spot on this roster, and he proved last year he was incredibly important to this team and still has all the juice in the world. So yeah, I think if he wants to come back, he will be back.
You can't replace him either.
You cannot. And I think Watts is a great player. He's young, but he's just there's no other one like in the entire NLL. There is no other Buchanan.
So on our next show, it will be the final show before the draft, so we'll be talking about all the happenings around the NLL. I'm sure we're going to be getting some bigger news in the next week and a half before the draft comes, but we'll be talking about what we want done with those picks on the next show, again, including with what else is going on in the NLL, including what's going on with the Buffalo Bills with the first game on Sunday. Again, make sure you head down to Tap That Tap Room, wear those jerseys and the player of the game jersey, and maybe you'll be lucky enough to be the lucky winner of the jersey at halftime. But Phil, that concludes this episode. Is there anything else you would like to add to it before we shut it down and you can go stare at your brand new fantasy football team?
I think that was the last draft for me for this season. So
one tonight, Wednesday tonight.
Oh, I was going to say, what?
Not now. Yeah, when you're listening
a 9
to this,
p.m. start? Jeez.
Yeah, it's a 9:15 start Wednesday night. So, yeah, it's a late one.
Oh, it is that late.
Yeah, it is that late, yeah.
Yikes.
Yep.
What is this? Is this the actual NFL first-round draft where it goes until midnight and then nobody picks anybody?
Now.
Yeah. No, I think we're all good to shut this episode down.
Perfect. Yeah, like I mentioned next episode, we'll be talking about the Buffalo Bills' first official game versus the
Very
Cardinals.
nervous to see what this team looks
Sunday,
like.
Sunday, 1 o'clock. really hoping from an explosion from the offense because the Cardinals defense is dog doo-doo. We'll be talking about any other news in the NLL free agency, and then we'll be talking about the NLL draft that is once again taking place September 15th. And another huge congratulations to Pat and Bina for getting married last Saturday. Welcome to the club. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Go. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can check out our store on our link tree on our socials or at the shop tab at the top of our website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time,